Something that we have to talk about a little bit here in the fitness world is that to the average person, bodybuilding does not appeal to them, at least what we think of as hardcore bodybuilding. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. And what I'm saying here, I think particularly both in terms of muscle mass sometimes and more importantly in terms of body fat. You get a lot of guys. I see a lot of guys, they don't seem to grasp this for some reason. They jump into the fitness world, they get too far in, and they think that if they want to attract women, they have to look like their favorite influencer when he has Photoshop and lighting in a perfect environment. And let's be realistic here. I have had friends who, when their contest lean gets put up online, I have seen attractive women respond, "That's gross, that's too much." Okay, let me state that again. So for the guys who are thinking, "Oh man, I've got to have a certain look," it's like, no, dude. And I'm not telling you the dad bod. I don't actually buy into that attractive women want the full dad bod either. That's not what I'm saying. It's usually insecure women who might want the more dad bod in some cases, but it's not always universally true. But what I am saying, this super shredded that guys think they need to be to attract women, or for a woman to say, "Wow, you have a smoking hot body," is actually not true. It's not going to do what you think it's going to do. Most women don't want you to have striated glutes. They don't want veins in your abs. I'm not saying some won't want it. Most of them aren't. Do you want to know what they're looking for? In terms of body fat, if you want to start getting the attention of particularly, say, attractive women, you just need a flat stomach. Like straight up. As long as you don't have any belly, you're already into that range to where a lot of women are going to be like, okay, there we go. Now, when you start getting into having a bit of ab and some six pack, you may do a little better. Okay? Not going to always be dramatically better, but you're still well into mainstream appeal and probably slightly more appealing. So if you start kind of looking at what is attractive there visually to most people, and when I say the average person, I don't mean the average necessarily overweight, out of shape person. I'm talking, average to above average attractiveness women, for example. And the same thing, even if you're into dudes, right? The same thing. Yes, having a little bit of ab will help you, but a flat stomach alone goes a long way. Having a little muscle goes a long way. And a lot of guys are like, well, a lot of people like the swimmer build. They do. And there's a point where your muscle starts to weigh against you also. But most people are never going to reach that level of muscle. Okay. In other words, I'm going to be straight up honest with you. If you don't use steroids, you have zero possibility. There is no possibility whatsoever, no matter how much muscle you try to gain, that it's going to be too much for mainstream appeal. It is pretty, for what we would call the mainstream attractiveness, I'm going to go on a limb and say it's impossible to exceed that limit on 500 or less milligrams of gear. So 500 milligrams of testosterone or less a week, it is impossible to get so big that it's too much for mainstream attractiveness. So natural is obviously less than 500 milligrams. Zero is less than 500, so it falls within that category. But yeah, it's not really truly a concern. It really isn't. So I would say, gain as much muscle as you want. And in some cases, there's going to be, degrees of change. Some people are not going to find as much muscle as attractive. Different people have different tastes. But if you're looking for a broad appeal to where your pictures online are going to get compliments, or you're shirtless at the beach or a pool party or whatever, and you're going to get compliments, you should probably focus on gaining quite a bit of muscle. Okay? You should focus on probably being body fat anywhere from about 10 to 18%. Okay? That is going to be your sweet spot for overall attractiveness to the general population. Again, I'm not talking the most out of shape obese. We're talking, relatively other attractive normal people. Okay? That's going to be your sweet spot. And in fact, I'll go so far as to say you're going to stand out. So if you have spent time in the gym gaining muscle, you're in that range, you're going to get You're going to get attention. And again, gaining muscle, even being slightly gear big, is going to actually help you. A lot of that's still going to fall well within the mainstream attractiveness. It's when we start getting grotesque. Okay? When you start getting really big, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a big problem. Okay? And again, I know that I look a little different here moving around these angles, but even some of the shirtless stuff I've done with some of my little photo shoots, those are unedited. That's just how I look when I'm laying down, chilling with good lighting. Those have gotten very, very positive responses. And then some people are not getting that. They're like, I don't understand. You're just not looking like this shredded bodybuilder. Because people don't like that. And that's what the fitness world has lost sight of. When you guys are like, but I need to get completely shredded. Being anywhere near contest lean is not going to give you the most appeal. It's not. You're going to start losing more and more people who like it. In fact, it's going to work against you. I'm going to say your cutoff's about 10% body fat. Now, am I saying there aren't going to be people who say, wow, that looks good when you're really shredded? Sure. It's going to be a smaller percentage. So I can tell most of you right now that if you gain a certain amount of muscle and you're in about that 10 to 12% body fat range, more people are going to think that you look good than if you were to cut down to 7% with the same muscle. You're going to start getting people who say, no, it's too much. In fact, here's the thing. I've seen guys who weren't that big cut down too shredded and their pictures go up and they're like 165 contest shredded. And it's the comments, oh, that's too much, they're too big, it looks gross. Because they're associating a grotesqueness with that. Okay? In the fitness world, we have tried to project that being absolutely shredded has appeal. It doesn't. Having completely striated, veiny pecs doesn't have mainstream appeal. It just doesn't. You are purely catering to a fitness audience at that point. You are now catering to a niche community. And so I'm saying that to all the people who, let's say your goal is a physique. You're like, I want a really good looking, attractive physique. Okay? You don't want to be completely shredded. So when people have that idea of that's what they think looks good or that's what looks aesthetic, it's not aesthetic in any classic sense. Okay? So in the fitness world, people saw sebum, right? And they're like, oh, that's really aesthetic. But it's not. To everyone else, or even historic bodybuilding trends, that is not aesthetic. It falls into the category of looking grotesque and unaesthetic to people, right? If you're looking for aesthetic, you're going to be looking at more of the golden era type bodybuilders to silver era bodybuilders. Those physiques are generally what most people are going to see, including women, and say that's like peak attractiveness and aesthetics in a physique. Okay, right about there. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.